Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, Dr. Greg Clark.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, and it's been an excellent debate. It's been vigorous and well subscribed, as befits a subject of such profound importance. And what's been established so clearly, it seems to me, is that there's a deep sense of responsibility for protecting and improving our environment that is shared across all sides of this House. Let me pay tribute to the Honourable Lady, the member for Newport West, for her maiden speech in this House. She used warm words about her predecessor and mentioned that he used his sense of humour to engage with people. And she, I think, has bought his book on how to be an MP. I think from her speech today, she's already making great strides. I don't think she needs too many lessons there. Having been in front of her predecessor on select committees which he served, he can also be a fierce interrogator, and I'm sure she'll learn those skills as well. I want to pay tribute, as the Honourable Lady opposite did, to the member for Doncaster North, who gave a profound speech and reflected on some of the lessons of leadership, both in his term as Secretary of State and as leader of the Labour Party. And he was right in saying that moral authority comes from being able to act. And that is one of the reasons that, even though we are a small country in terms of the contribution we make to emissions, we have the moral authority that comes from being a leader, and we must continue that with our action. And he pointed out that, of course, we have, and it's legitimate to have, different visions of how we get there, but that's not to decry the motivation that we share on this point. I'd like to pay tribute to my honourable friend for Truro and Falmouth in terms of she was a good example of what we can do in constituencies. And the climate vision on her website we should look to and see if we can emulate across all of our constituencies to embrace our role as local leaders as well as in this place. I'd like to mention the contribution of my honourable friend for Copeland, reminding us that nuclear has played and will play a distinguished role in making sure that we can generate power free from emissions. And finally, I'd like to pay tribute to my right honourable friend, the member for West Dorset, whose work in opposition in producing the paper The Low Carbon Economy established very considerable consensus across this House and was seminal in shaping the Climate Change Act, which the Right Honourable Gentleman led, and I know that he would recognise that contribution. And it seems to me that the tone of this debate underlines why we should not create division in this House where there is none. Indeed, I would say that one of our proudest achievements in this country when it comes to environmentalism and climate change is that we have displayed to the world in international fora an impressive national determination to lead our country and to lead the world, with the baton of responsibility being passed from one government to its successors. Mrs Thatcher, as many members have contributed in this debate, was the very first global leader to acknowledge at the UN, and as I quote her, what may be the early signs of man-induced climate change. Her speech in 1989 bears rereading for those who may not be familiar with how profound her anticipation of the problems that we are grappling with was. And it wasn't just the anticipation of the problems. She was a woman of action, and if we think back to what she did, thought impossible at the time to virtually eradicate CFCs across the world. She described the task of governments as this: to follow the best available evidence, to decide where the balance of evidence lies, and to take prudent action. Over the years, we've done that. The last Labour government passed the Climate Change Act with cross-party support. And I say cross-party support because the Right Honourable Gentleman will acknowledge that we, on this side of the House, then on the other side, participated in amending the bill to increase the ambition from targets of 60% to the 80% targets that we have. The bill, when it started its life, included a 60% target, and when it left this House, it was the 80% that the Stern Review proposed. West. So, if we take the motion as drafted, there is no reason to fracture the consensus that's been such an important feature of this area. The first sentence of the motion reflects what we've all long recognised, that the need to reduce emissions is urgent and compelling, and we should heed the advice of the scientists who comprise the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We've always considered that to be right, and I'm glad we agree. The second sentence rightly calls attention to the consequences for the natural environment and society of global warming. We know that going back to 1990, again Mrs Thatcher said, weather patterns could change so that what is now wet could become dry, what is now dry could become wet, the character and behaviour of plants would change, some species of animals and plants would migrate to different zones or disappear forever. The third sentence calls on the House to increase the UK's targets under the Climate Change Act and to ensure that we capture the benefits of the low-carbon economy. As all members know, my right honourable friend, the member for Devizes, and I commissioned the Committee on Climate Change after the Paris Accord to precisely advise us on how we can reflect this raised ambition in our targets, and we know that tomorrow they will publish that assessment. We did not ask for that advice in order to ignore it. We intend to act on it, and we are proud of the progress that we have made. I was reading some of the policy documents that were being debated at the time of 2008 when we were forging this consensus. And between 1997 and 2007, our greenhouse gas emissions were increasing. They were increasing at the rate of 2% a year. Between 1999 and 2004. Since then, we've transformed our performance and our reputation. Since the year 2000, few countries in the world, and none in the G20, has gone faster than Great Britain in decarbonising the economy. We will continue to set the pace over the years ahead, during which the battle to halt catastrophic climate change will be won or lost. We intend to win. Mr. Speaker, the motion concludes urging further action to be taken to restore our natural environment and to create a circular economy. Through the Environment Bill, the Agriculture Bill, through the Industrial Strategy and our Clean Growth Strategy, we will do precisely that. Mr. Speaker, I hope that we can maintain this common purpose. The Honourable Lady opposite set out her party's position. There isn't one person who joins my party who isn't concerned about the heritage of our planet. Conservation, preservation, the inheritance of future generations are a deep instinct of every Conservative. It's not new, nor does it sit at variance with our governing philosophy. Indeed, our traditional concerns for the environment and a prosperous economy should not be seen as contradiction to each other. And as we consider the threats from climate change, let us remember that without prosperity, people also become extinct. Enterprise has been the greatest rebellion against extinction in the history of the world. So the economy and climate change have to be brought together. The only thing that will work to deal with climate change is where the market is adapted to ensure both prosperity and the conservation of our environment. I'm proud that Britain is an advanced capitalist nation, but one with a deep respect for its environment. Mr. Speaker, this Parliament
is order. The question is that the question be now put. As other people say, aye. Aye. No, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is as on the order paper. As many as have that opinion, yeah, we'll come to that. As many as have that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.